Under the relentless Texas sun, where the heat distorted the air in shimmering waves and the cracked earth stretched to the horizon, Samuel Mitchell guided his wagon down the dusty road that cut across the arid plains. The 40-year-old farmer, his face weathered by time and hands calloused from hard labor, was heading towards town when he spotted dark smoke rising into the metallic blue sky. As he approached, he came upon the wreckage of a wagon attacked by outlaws. Amidst the smoldering debris, two girls trembled, huddled together. Emma, 12, protected her younger sister, Lucy, only 8. "Please, sir," Emma pleaded, her voice choked, "take my sister instead of me. She's younger and needs to live." The hot wind carried the acrid smell of burnt wood and the palpable tension of that moment that would change all their lives forever. Samuel watched the two children with a heavy heart, remembering his own daughter, whom he had lost years ago. The decision was clear in his mind, even knowing the dangers he would face. "I'm not leaving either of you behind," he declared firmly, helping both of them into the wagon. The journey to Abilene would be long and perilous, crossing territories controlled by different outlaw groups, vying for every inch of that wild land. The girls huddled among the sacks of grain and tools, while Samuel whipped the horses, beginning a journey that would test not only his courage, but his humanity. The sky began to take on the orange hues of dusk as they passed the first abandoned fields, where the withered corn contrasted with the golden vastness of the Texas prairie. Each mile traveled was a silent victory against the brutality of that unforgiving world. The first night was tense, with Samuel remaining vigilant while the girls slept wrapped in his coarse wool blanket. The campfire crackled low, casting dancing shadows on the children's tired faces, while coyotes howled in the distance and the wind whispered through the dry bushes. At dawn, when the first rays of sun tinged the scattered clouds pink, Samuel noticed horse tracks around the camp. The outlaws had found their trail during the night. With his heart pounding, he woke the girls gently and prepared the wagon to leave as quickly as possible. Emma held Lucy's hand tightly, her blue eyes reflecting a maturity forced by tragedy. "Will they find us?" Lucy asked with a trembling voice. Samuel adjusted his leather hat and replied, "Not while I'm breathing, little one." The determination in his voice masked the fear growing in his chest. The inevitable confrontation happened in Red Canyon Pass, where the red rock walls rose like ancient sentinels under the intense blue sky. 5 armed men blocked the passage, their horses neighing nervously as the dust settled around their hooves. The leader, a bearded man with scars on his face, approached slowly. "These girls are worth a good sum, old man," he said with a cruel smile. Samuel positioned himself in front of the wagon, his rifle firm in his hands, trembling with tension. "They're not merchandise," he replied, his voice echoing through the rocks. The shootout that followed was brief but intense, with bullets ricocheting off the stones, creating a deadly symphony of metal and gunpowder. Emma protected Lucy behind the barrels, whispering words of comfort as the world around them exploded in violence. When silence finally returned to the pass, Samuel remained standing, wounded but victorious, the bodies of the outlaws scattered across the red earth like blood itself. With his left arm bandaged and his face marked by superficial cuts, Samuel guided the wagon the last few miles to Abilene, where the first wooden houses began to appear among the sparse trees. The girls, still in shock but relieved, watched the small town come to life with its merchants, blacksmiths and farmers, coming and going on the dirt roads. The smell of fresh bread mingled with that of tanned leather and horses, creating a welcoming atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the horrors they had faced. At the local church, Reverend Thompson and his wife, Martha, immediately offered to care for the orphans, their kind faces radiating the compassion that still existed in that harsh world. Emma hugged Samuel tightly, her tears wetting the farmer's dusty shirt. "Thank you for not abandoning us," she whispered. Samuel merely nodded, his words caught in his throat by emotion. He knew he had made the right decision, even if it had almost cost him his life. As the sun set that afternoon, painting the Texas sky with shades of orange and purple, Samuel mounted his horse to return to the solitary ranch he called home. The two girls waved from the church porch, their futures now secure in the hands of the community that had welcomed them. The farmer looked back one last time, imprinting on his memory the faces of those children whose courage and fraternal love had inspired him to be better than he thought he was capable of. The road stretched ahead of him, winding between gentle hills where cattle grazed peacefully under the first stars. In that moment of peace, Samuel understood that some choices define not only our destiny, but our humanity. In a place where the law of the strong prevailed, he had proven that compassion could still triumph. The night breeze carried with it the promise that, in the unforgiving heart of the Old West, even the quietest choices echo as legends that span generations. Dawn arrived, painting the Texas sky with pink and golden hues, as Samuel Mitchell awoke in his rustic wooden cabin located 15 miles from Abilene. The events of the past few days seemed like a distant dream, but the scars on his arm and the emptiness in his heart confirmed the reality of that transformative journey. He prepared his usual black coffee, watching through the fogged window as the cattle grazed peacefully in the green fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. The smell of bacon frying in the cast-iron skillet mingled with the earthy aroma of the Texas morning, creating an atmosphere of normalcy that contrasted with the inner turmoil he felt. Samuel knew his life had changed forever in that canyon, where the choice between right and easy had become a matter of life or death. The memories of the two girls, Emma and Lucy, warmed his heart like the sun that now fully illuminated his isolated property. In the town of Abilene, Emma awoke in the cozy room of Reverend Thompson's house, watching her sister Lucy sleep peacefully beside her. The wrought-iron bed, covered with colorful quilts made by Mrs. Martha, offered a comfort they hadn't known for weeks. Through the window with lace curtains, she could see merchants opening their shops on the main street, where wagons loaded with goods moved slowly over the dirt road. The smell of fresh biscuits rising from the kitchen woke Lucy, who smiled for the first time since the tragedy that had destroyed their family. "Emma, do you think Mr. Samuel is okay?" the younger girl asked, her blue eyes still filled with concern. Emma gently stroked her sister's blonde hair, remembering the courage of that man who had risked everything to save them. "I'm sure he is, Lucy. Men like him are stronger than we imagine," she replied, her voice filled with gratitude and hope. 3 weeks after the rescue, Samuel received an unexpected visit to his farm. Reverend Thompson arrived in his wagon, pulled by 2 bay horses, bringing with him Emma and Lucy, who insisted on personally thanking the man who had saved their lives. The girls stepped down from the wagon in new dresses sewn by Mrs. Martha, their faces radiant with health and happiness, contrasting with the paleness and fear they had shown weeks earlier. Samuel, who was mending a fence near the barn, dropped his tools and walked towards the visitors, his heart quickening with emotion. "Mr. Samuel!" Lucy shouted, running towards him, closely followed by Emma, who carried a small package in her hands. The farmer knelt to receive the warm embrace of the two, feeling tears form in his eyes as the gentle wind swayed the golden wheat fields around the property. In that moment, he understood that he had gained much more than saving 2 lives. Emma handed the package to Samuel, with hands trembling with nervousness and gratitude. Inside the carefully folded fabric was a hand-embroidered handkerchief with the initials SM in blue threads, accompanied by a letter written in the careful handwriting of a 12-year-old girl. "We learned about embroidery with Mrs. Martha," Emma explained, "and we wanted to make something special for you." Samuel unfolded the letter and silently read the touching words that described how he had become a hero to them, not only for saving them, but for showing that good people still existed in the world. Lucy added, "The Reverend said you're an angel disguised as a cowboy." Everyone laughed at the girl's innocent observation as the afternoon sun cast long shadows that danced among the nearby trees. Samuel carefully put the handkerchief in his shirt pocket, close to his heart, knowing that this simple gesture represented something much greater than gratitude. In the months that followed, Samuel maintained regular correspondence with the girls through Reverend Thompson. Emma wrote about her progress at the local school, where she quickly distinguished herself as a brilliant student, dreaming of becoming a teacher to help other children like her. Lucy, for her part, found passion in music, learning to play the piano at church under the patient guidance of Mrs. Martha. The letters brought colorful drawings of life in Abilene, showing community festivals, abundant harvests, and the simple joy of children who had finally found a safe place to grow. Samuel always responded with news from his farm, describing the birth of new calves, the changing seasons, and the small improvements he made to his property. Through these epistolary exchanges, an improbable family had formed, united not by blood, but by the shared experience of overcoming adversity with courage and human compassion. A year after the rescue, Samuel received a special invitation. Emma was graduating from Abilene Elementary School and wanted him to be present at the ceremony. The farmer, now with slightly grayer hair but the same generous heart, put on his best clothes and traveled to town in a wagon decorated with wildflowers he had picked on his property. The ceremony took place at the local church, where Emma spoke about courage and second chances, her eyes meeting Samuel's in the audience as she spoke about how a stranger had become family. Lucy, seated at the piano, played a soft melody she had composed herself, dedicated to Uncle Samuel, who had given them a new life. When the music ended and applause echoed through the walls of the small Texas church, Samuel knew that his decision that fateful day in the canyon had not only saved 2 lives, but transformed his own forever. In the unforgiving heart of the Old West, love had triumphed over violence, proving that even in the most adverse circumstances, humanity prevails. 2 years had passed since that transformative day in the canyon, and Samuel Mitchell had become a respected figure in the Abilene community. His farm prospered as never before, with fields of golden corn waving gently in the Texas breeze and healthy herds grazing on the verdant prairies that stretched to the distant horizon. The farmer, now 42, maintained a disciplined routine that began before sunrise, when the sky still displayed shades of purple and pink. He had found renewed purpose in his work, knowing that every harvested grain and every raised animal represented not only sustenance, but also hope for the future. Letters from Emma and Lucy continued to arrive regularly, bringing news of their academic and musical progress, feeding Samuel's lonely heart with a joy he thought he had lost forever after the death of his own daughter years ago. Emma, now 14, had become a determined and intelligent young woman, excelling as the best student at Abilene's newly opened high school. Her brown hair shone under the Texas sun as she walked the dusty streets of the town, carrying books borrowed from the small library that Reverend Thompson had organized in the church. She dreamed of becoming a teacher, inspired by the kindness she had received from the community and determined to give back by helping other children in need. During the afternoons, she helped Mrs. Martha with household chores and caring for other orphans who occasionally arrived in town, always remembering the lessons of compassion she had learned from Samuel on that terrible day that had changed her life. Lucy, in turn, had grown into a lively 10-year-old girl whose nimble fingers on the church piano enchanted the entire congregation during Sunday services. Her simple but touching compositions reflected a pure soul that had overcome trauma through music and love. Winter arrived earlier that year, covering the Texas plains with a thin layer of ice that made the ground glitter like diamonds under the pale morning sun. Samuel faced financial difficulties due to a blight that had affected part of his harvest, forcing him to sell some of his most precious horses to keep the farm running. Loneliness weighed heavier during the cold months, when the wind howled through the cracks in the wooden cabin and the nights seemed endless. It was during one of those dark nights that he received an urgent letter from Reverend Thompson, informing him that Emma had fallen gravely ill with pneumonia and needed expensive medical care that her adoptive family could not afford. Samuel's heart ached with anguish, remembering how he had lost his own daughter to the same illness years earlier. Without hesitation, he gathered all his savings hidden in a rusty tin can under the floorboards and set off for Abilene the next morning, determined to save Emma once more. The journey to Abilene through the light snow that had begun to fall was a journey of reflection and prayer for Samuel, who guided his wagon along the icy roads as he considered the irony of fate that once again placed him in the position of savior. Upon arriving at Reverend Thompson's house, he found Lucy sitting beside the bed where Emma lay pale and feverish, her bluish lips contrasting with the whiteness of the pillow. The local doctor, Dr. Harrison, an elderly man with grey whiskers and round glasses, explained that Emma would need expensive medicines imported from the big city, as well as constant care for several weeks. "Doctor," Samuel said with a firm voice, placing a bag of coins on the table, "do whatever is necessary. This girl is like a daughter to me." Lucy held Samuel's calloused hand, her tears wetting his rough palm as she whispered, "I knew you would come to save us again." In that moment, Samuel understood that his life's mission was to protect those two precious souls that God had placed in his path. For the next 3 weeks, Samuel remained in Abilene, dividing his time between caring for Emma and working in the local stables to earn extra money that could help with the treatment. He slept in a chair beside the girl's bed, observing each laborious breath and applying cold compresses to her forehead when the fever rose. Lucy became his constant assistant, preparing herbal teas that Mrs. Martha had taught her and playing soft melodies on the piano whenever Emma showed signs of improvement. The Abilene community rallied around the family, with neighbors bringing warm soups, extra blankets, and sincere prayers. Slowly, gradually, Emma began to recover, her natural color returning to her once pale cheeks and her voice regaining strength. When she finally sat up in bed and managed to drink a whole glass of chicken broth without help, Samuel felt such intense joy that tears silently streamed down his face, weathered by the sun and time. Spring brought renewal for all of them, with Emma fully recovered and more determined than ever to pursue her educational dreams. Samuel made a decision that surprised everyone. He sold his solitary farm and moved permanently to Abilene, buying a small property on the outskirts of town where he could raise horses and be close to the girls who had become his chosen family. The official adoption ceremony took place the following spring, with Samuel formally becoming the legal guardian of Emma and Lucy, a decision celebrated by the entire community that had witnessed the transformation of that lonely man into a devoted father. Emma, now 15, began teaching younger children, fulfilling her dream while still studying. Lucy, at 11, organized small concerts at the church, her compositions speaking of hope, family, and second chances. On that late Texas afternoon, as the golden sun illuminated the rolling fields and the wind carried the scent of wildflowers, Samuel watched his daughters playing in the yard and knew he had found the true meaning of fatherhood, not in blood, but in the unconditional love and selfless sacrifice that unites hearts destined to form a family. 5 years had passed since Samuel Mitchell made that decision that changed 3 lives forever. Emma, now a 17-year-old young woman, had become the assistant teacher at the Abilene school, her brown eyes shining with a passion for teaching as she helped orphaned children and settlers' children discover the world through books. Her delicate hands, which once trembled with fear in the canyon, now wrote confidently on the blackboard, teaching arithmetic and reading with the patience she had learned from Samuel. Lucy, at 13, had become a recognized pianist throughout the region, her performances at the church attracting visitors from neighboring towns who came especially to hear the touching melodies she composed. Samuel, now 45, watched his adopted daughters with paternal pride, his graying hair reflecting the wisdom gained through years of total dedication to that unlikely family. The small property he had bought on the outskirts of Abilene prospered with horse breeding, and his reputation as an upright man had spread throughout the Texas county. The autumn of 1887 brought significant changes for the Mitchell family. Emma received an offer to study at a teacher training school in Austin, the capital of Texas, an opportunity that represented the fulfillment of her most ambitious dreams, but also meant leaving Abilene and the security of the home she knew. For weeks she debated the decision with Samuel and Lucy, walking through the golden fields surrounding their home as she pondered the future. Samuel, despite the pain of seeing her leave, encouraged Emma to follow her dreams, reminding her that education was the key to helping even more children in need. "You have a special gift, Emma," he said one night, as they watched the stars from the wooden porch. "God put you in this world to make a difference in the lives of many people, just as you did in mine." Lucy, though sad at the prospect of separation, composed a special song for her sister, a melody that spoke of courage, growth, and the bonds that unite a true family, regardless of physical distance. Emma's departure for Austin was a bittersweet moment for the entire Mitchell family. At the Abilene train station, a small wooden structure that connected the town to the rest of Texas, Samuel handed his adopted daughter a small Bible that had belonged to his late wife, along with all the savings he had managed to gather to pay for her studies. Emma, wearing her best navy blue dress sewn by Mrs. Martha, hugged her father tightly, her tears wetting the cotton shirt he wore on special occasions. "I promise I'll make you proud," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Lucy played one last song on the small piano in the station, a soft melody that moved everyone present with its simple beauty. When the train whistled and began to move slowly along the tracks that disappeared into the horizon, Samuel and Lucy waved until Emma became just a distant dot in the Texas landscape. In that moment, the farmer understood that being a father meant having the courage to let your children fly, even when it broke your heart. During the 2 years Emma was in Austin, correspondence between the members of the Mitchell family intensified considerably. Her letters arrived every week, bringing news of her extraordinary academic progress and the friendships she had made with other aspiring female educators. Emma described her pedagogy, literature and advanced mathematics classes with contagious enthusiasm, always mentioning how Samuel's teachings about compassion and perseverance helped her overcome the challenges of university life. Lucy, in turn, had grown into a talented 15-year-old young woman whose musical compositions were beginning to attract the attention of professional musicians visiting Abilene. She organized small benefit concerts to raise funds for orphans in the region, following the example of generosity that Samuel and Emma had taught her. Samuel kept the property running perfectly, raising horses that were sought after by farmers throughout the county due to their exceptional quality and the loving care the animals received. Emma's graduation in 1889 was an event celebrated by the entire Abilene community. She returned as a certified educator, bringing with her innovative teaching ideas and an even greater determination to make a difference in the lives of children in need. Samuel traveled to Austin for the graduation ceremony, wearing a new suit he bought especially for the occasion, his heart overflowing with pride at seeing Emma receive her diploma with highest honors. During her graduation speech, she spoke about second chances, chosen family, and how a brave Texas farmer had changed her perspective on what truly mattered in life. Back in Abilene, Emma officially took over the direction of the local school, implementing special programs for orphaned children and creating a community library that would become the pride of the town. Lucy, inspired by her sister's success, decided she wanted to study music formally, dreaming of becoming a piano teacher and professional composer, following in the family's footsteps in education and community service. In the summer of 1890, when the 3 lives that intertwined on that fateful day in the canyon had found their definitive purposes, Samuel organized a small celebration on his property to mark the 10th anniversary of when he saved Emma and Lucy. Friends from all over Abilene attended the party, including Reverend Thompson and Mrs. Martha, now elderly but still active in the community. Emma, at 20, spoke about how the courage of a stranger had not only saved their lives, but shown the world that kindness still existed in human hearts. Lucy, at 16, played the music she had composed especially for the occasion, a simple yet deeply emotional symphony that told the story of her family through melodies that moved everyone present. Samuel, watching his daughters become admirable and successful women, understood that his greatest achievement was not building a prosperous farm or earning the respect of the community, but having had the courage to choose love over fear in that decisive moment that defined the destiny of all of them. As the sun set over the Texas plains, painting the sky with golden and purple hues, he knew he had lived a truly meaningful life.